You're familiar with the term misogyny, right? It's everywhere. But have you ever really stopped to think about its counterpart?
Or, why certain experiences that men go through might get kind of overlooked or maybe even mislabeled in today's world.
Exactly. Our deep dive today is going to tackle some pretty bold claims, actually, about modern gender dynamics, really provocative stuff.
Yeah, we're drawing from this interesting YouTube discussion. It features a male therapist, and his perspective really pushes back against some common narratives about men, women, equality.
So, our mission for you listening is to kind of pull out the key arguments from this chat, help you understand what the source thinks happens when maybe societal focus creates blind spots.
We're looking at a video called Male Therapist Check SS Feminist on her double standards
Right.
from the channel Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews.
So, yeah, get ready for some pretty challenging ideas. Okay, so let's dive right in. The source kicks off with this really stark contrast. Misogyny, everyone knows it, talks about it. Misandry.
Yeah, a lot of people apparently can't even define it. The source says it's basically a strong distaste and hatred for men.
And the claim is that everyday stuff men experience at work, school, dating, especially apps, it gets mislabeled.
That's the core argument here. Instead of seeing it as maybe, misandry aimed at them, their reactions get twisted.
Twisted how?
Well, they get labeled as incels or just straight up misogynists. So the reaction, not the initial action, becomes the focus.
Huh. So the source is arguing women can be misandristic or even reductionistic towards men. What's reductionistic mean in this context?
It's this idea that men often get boiled down to just their wallets.
Oh, okay.
Like, if you don't have the money, you have no say and you need to shut up. That's the kind of sentiment the source points to.
Wow.
And even for guys who do provide, it's still framed transactionally. Like that, quote, happy wife, happy life, once I'm in your life, damn this brother good.
Suggests it's just about the resources, not the person.
That's the implication, yeah.
Mm.
A very transactional view.
Okay, so moving from mislabeling to these blind spots the source talks about, it brings up this really striking story. An investigator, a woman.
Right. And according to the source, in a case with a male perpetrator, she apparently said, I just want the attention to be on the victim, on the girl.
But the source pushes back hard on that, says there were two victims
Yeah,
there.
exactly. One person lost their life, sure. But the other, they lost their freedom potentially for the rest of their lives.
So what's the bigger picture here? What does this anecdote illustrate, according to the source?
It's meant to show this broader societal issue, this indifference, maybe. The source claims society is so oblivious to the realities and perspectives of what young boys and men are going through.
Oblivious to the environment that creates the problem.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Ignoring the context,
Yeah.
the factors that might lead someone down that path, just focusing on the end result.
And okay, this apparently leads into a critique of how feminism is seen by, well, by many men, according to this source.
Right. The video argues that for these men, it doesn't feel like it's about equality. It feels more like a woman advocacy movement.
Why? Because it ignores male issues.
That's the claim, that there's this whole list of things affecting men that, according to the source, nobody cares about. Or, most people who don't do what I do don't care about this at all.
Okay, so what's on this list? What are these supposedly ignored issues?
Oh, it's quite a range. The source mentions mandatory paternity tests, paternity fraud,
Okay.
male suicide rates, that striking statistic about men being 4 times more likely to die by suicide.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Then there's equalizing tough physical jobs. Issues around false accusations, which the source claims hits men almost exclusively. Also, boys falling behind in school, the rise in ADHD diagnoses and meds for them, lack of homeless shelters specifically for men.
Wow, it is a long list.
It keeps going. The weaponization of the family court,
Yeah.
things like custody battles, reproductive safety for men, reducing child support and alimony, and just this general sense of men and masculinity being pathologized, even negative views towards men wanting a traditional nuclear family.
So the takeaway, according to the source, is pretty bleak. Western society only cares if it's your brother, your son.
Their brother, their son, or their father, or their uncle, or their close friend. Otherwise, the source suggests there's just not much empathy there. It's a heavy claim.
And building on that idea of selective empathy, the source really leans into its critique of the feminist movement, says it screams equality, but still expects men to protect and provide.
While simultaneously tearing down those same very men with messages that they're worthless. That's the source's interpretation.
What kind of messages is it talking about?
Things like they don't need men or men ain't shit. The whole boss babe mentality is mentioned too.
Okay.
And this claim that many of these modern-day women just see men as ATM machines, bank accounts.
Like we discussed with reductionism.
Exactly. But as the layer of also not wanting to do any of the wifely duties that were supposedly traditional requirements for strong families. It's painting a picture of shifting expectations, maybe unfairly.
And this leads to a really pointed observation about empathy.
Yeah, the source says, so many women require men to have this great deal of empathy. Meanwhile, modern women in general have no empathy for the modern man. That's a direct quote, a very strong statement.
And this perceived lack of empathy, this distaste for Western women,
Right.
that's linked to the passport bros thing.
That's the connection the source makes, yeah. Men looking elsewhere for partners.
Why, though? What's driving that, according to the video?
Economics, largely. It talks about this relentless hamster wheel of life in the West, cost of living exploding.
Can you give an example?
Sure, it mentions property taxes in some places costing as much as rent does elsewhere globally, or daycare for 1 or 2 kids eating up like 50 to 60% of what many people earn worldwide.
So it's just incredibly expensive to live, let alone raise a family traditionally.
Makes it damn near impossible for one parent to stay home in expensive cities, the source argues.
So going abroad becomes appealing because...
Because the purchase parity is so favorable, your money goes way further. A traditional household, one income. Suddenly, very plausible.
Okay, so we've talked economics, relationship dynamics. Now the source turns to social media. Calls it a magnifying glass.
Yeah, one that distorts things. Fuels fear-mongering.
How does it distort?
Well, the source argues that while some people, the most healthy of us, can separate online stuff from real life, most cannot.
And this digital world clashes with reality.
Apparently, yeah. The source says, look, when I walk around in everyday life, men and women still open the door for each other. Men still help women in trouble. Things are mostly normal offline.
So the viral stuff isn't the whole picture.
Not even close, the source contends. What's going viral isn't actually 100% a reflection of what's actually happening most of our lives. And it warns that AI video will make this even worse, further distorting perception.
Right. And this skepticism carries over to mainstream media, too. It mentions a show, Adolescence.
Yeah, and suggests questioning why it's being pushed, especially if politicians or celebrities get behind it. Hints at ulterior motives.
What does the source think these narratives miss? It brings up some specific, maybe surprising statistics.
It does. Again, these are claims from the source we're relaying. It states a huge percentage of men who feel alienated are actually far more of a danger to themselves, pointing to suicide stats again.
Okay.
And then it makes claims about domestic violence rates being significantly higher in lesbian relationships compared to heterosexual ones, and higher divorce rates for female same-sex couples, too.
And the purpose of bringing these up is
To suggest that dominant narratives might be cherry-picking data or ignoring statistics that don't fit a certain viewpoint, that these overlooked points contribute to an incomplete picture of gender dynamics.
got it. So the source is basically saying this whole gender war isn't necessarily based in reality.
A lot of it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even coming from in here, meaning real-life interactions. It's coming from what we're seeing on screens and on these computers.
And that connects to shifting values, this idea of female-flation.
Right. That's the term the source uses. The idea that from a man's perspective, the costs seem to be increasing while the relative value is decreasing.
Leading men to question marriage.
Yeah, to rationalize it, asking, is the juice worth the damn squeeze? It's framing marriage as a cost-benefit analysis that maybe isn't adding up for some men anymore.
This really brings us into that classic nature versus nurture debate, doesn't it? The source mentions the naturalist fallacy and blank slate theory.
Exactly. How much are we hardwired? How much are we socialized?
And how does the source connect this to the gender discussion?
It argues that many feminists, or at least those critiqued by the source, lean heavily on nurture, on the blank slate.
Believing differences can just be socialized out.
Pretty much. The source claims they might insist there is no innate psychological differences between men and women, and that problems would resolve if men would just start to behave, communicate, think, and act like women.
But the source challenges that directly.
It does. It concedes some physiological differences are tiny, but argues others are massive with huge implications.
Implying that ignoring biology or maybe evolutionary psychology is a mistake.
That seems to be the point, that ignoring potential hardwiring leads to unrealistic expectations, maybe setting people up for conflict by denying fundamental differences.
So wrapping things up, the conversation in the video came back to the channel's purpose, its mission statement almost.
Yeah, to expose the lack of empathy toward men and reclaim the right to hold women accountable for their own actions and behaviors.
That's quite direct, and it includes this idea of bring back shame for bad behavior. That sounds controversial.
It is. The reasoning, from the source's viewpoint, is that without critique, without consequences or shame, there's no incentive to change negative behaviors. No burning platform.
And this will somehow benefit men and reduce some of these ridiculous-ass numbers referring to things like suicide rates.
That's the logic presented. There's frustration expressed with men accepting garbage behavior. It even gives this example about cooking.
Oh, yeah.
Men wanting a partner who can cook, but finding most women today, modern women today, don't even know how to make rice. It's presented as an example of declining standards or skills met with acceptance.
Okay. And then it talks about leverage in relationships.
Right. It claims men gain leverage when they have their lives in order physically, emotionally, financially.
And how's that compared to women's leverage?
Women's leverage, as gatekeepers of sex, is presented as strongest when they're young, attractive, fertile.
But that changes over time.
According to the source, yes. Men can supposedly date up or down in age more easily. Whereas for women, the older we get, we can only look up in age or down in age, suggesting limitations. It uses an example of a divorced lawyer easily finding someone younger.
Highlighting a perceived imbalance in long-term options.
Exactly. That's the dynamic the source describes.
So really, the big final message seems to be critical. Don't just swallow what you see online.
Pretty much. Question the screen. Realize that what fuels the gender war might be more digital illusion than everyday reality.
Well, we've certainly unpacked a lot there. Some really candid, sometimes uncomfortable takes on modern masculinity, empathy, the media's role.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging conversation, but, maybe a necessary one to understand all the viewpoints out there regarding gender roles today.
Absolutely. And understanding these perspectives, like the source presents them, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing.
Right at all. It's
Yeah.
about getting a fuller picture. Seeing the complex dynamics people are talking about, the source really pushes you to question narratives, especially the popular ones, and think about the downstream effects.
So as you think about everything we've discussed, here's a final thought to mull over, drawn from the source. It can't possibly be because there's been an environment that's been telling them that we hate you. And again, this is why the platform is so important.
Think about that. What does happen in a society if a large group, in this case men, according to the source, feels constantly blamed, ignored, told their very nature is wrong?
What kind of changes, societal shifts, or even just individual choices might bubble up from an environment like that? Something to consider.